Hello, awesome people. One of these days, I'm going to get this office decorated. That's for sure. Because I was like looking at this going, snap. Anyway, today's video is going to be about letting go of the narcissist. We need to let these people go. That's all I have to say. So holding on to people that don't invest in you, really, you're not going to get anything out of this. So there's no point in holding on to people that that aren't giving back or putting anything back into your life. If they can walk away from you, let them walk. That's like my big thing. And I'm going to give you 1 John 2:19. They went out from us, but they did not belong to us. For if they had belonged to us, they would still remain with us. And that's a big one. I know that we sit there and we want to hold on to people that are walking out on us, but what's the point of that? It's just one of those things. I mean, every time people walk out, they're there for a season. And that's what people need to recognize, is that there's certain people that are brought to you at certain times because you have things that you're going through and you're walking through a season. I know that when my ex was with me, I had a lot going on, and I think I've explained that. I haven't really gone into detail of what was going on, but they were there for that season. And I believe, I don't want to be like, oh, well, God brought this person into my life to terrorize me. But I do believe that he was there for that season to help me get through that season. And I'll always be thankful for that part of it. But when that season was over, I should have let him go. And, I was thinking that, that was just a crappy thing for me to do. He'd help me walk through all the things that I was walking through. But at that point, we'd gone through survival mode to actually trying to enjoy each other in a relationship that he was no longer plugged into. And as women, as I've said before, we can tell when a man's pulling away. And I couldn't understand why they were pulling away. And the other thing is that they have supply. Well, I was the main supply for about 2.5 years. And, I know that most people talk about supply being another woman or another man that, that they're romantically involved in. And that's not necessarily true. I know with mine, when he pulled new supply and it was somebody else that he saw was a bigger investment than I was. They had things that could help him get where he was going to go. And so he poured himself into that person. And I couldn't understand why I was even jealous at this time. I was jealous because all the time that he had originally given to me was now going to another person. And I knew that this person wasn't better than me, but this person was apparently what he needed to fuel and have them, tell him how great he was, because I wasn't telling him how great he was at that point. I was basically telling him that, hey, we need to work as a team and we need to start building things. And he didn't want to put that investment into us. And, even though I was the so-called love of his life and, wanted to marry me and, wanted to have a family and all those great things. But again, once they devalue you, they don't want to put any more into it. So they'll find other people to, step on. I guess that's the best way to put it, to use and to step on to, so that they can get to the level that they're trying to get to. So if you no longer serve a purpose, they're not going to put anything into the relationship anymore. They're going to put purpose and vision into the other people that they see are more valuable than you at that time. So anyway, so back to the letting go. Also stop letting people break your heart over and over. And that was the one thing that, I looked at and was realizing that my heart was being broken over and over somebody that didn't really care about me. They told me they did. They told me they loved me. They told me that, I was everything to them. But the actions, again, didn't line up with the words. His actions were basically just devaluing me at that point. But that also leads into Proverbs 4:23. Guard your heart above all else, for it is the source of life. And women out here are not guarding their hearts enough. Our heart needs to be for God, and we need to be living for God, and we need to be spiritually filled that way. And unfortunately, we make men our gods of our lives. And it's a big mistake. It's just that we're putting somebody else before him. And I know a lot of you out here are not Christian. I know that you're just looking for answers in the secular world. But I know in my walk, I had to get pretty close to God to survive all of this. And I would recommend the same thing. Whether you believe in God or whether you believe in a higher power or however, we're not in control of anything. Even if you want to go into like the universe is in control. But to me, God is in control. God is the provider of my life, and God is the one that supplies all of my needs. The other thing is that if you are trying to keep them instead of letting them go, whether it's business or relationships, you cannot negotiate from a position of weakness. And I know my ex will say that this is like my favorite line, but it's true. I am a businesswoman, and I know that if I'm emotional about purchasing something in my business, or there's emotion behind it, I'm going to lose in the negotiation. It's the same thing with love. If you're more invested than they are, or your heart's more invested than they are, you're already trying to negotiate from a position of weakness. So that's not going to serve you. You're going to lose. It's just the bottom line to it. There's not going to be a good outcome. So if you're constantly chasing them and you're constantly trying to fix the whole relationship on your own, and it's just a one-sided relationship, you're going to lose. They may come back and you may think, oh, okay, they love me because they're coming back. They're coming back to get more supply. And the more that you get that into your head, the better off you're going to be in the long run. The other thing is that, again, if you're trying to make these relationships work out, you're going to have to be willing to completely sacrifice yourself. That means you don't have a voice. And when we're feeling neglected or feeling hurt, we want somebody to validate that hurt. And when you're talking to them about this is the issue, they don't care. They can't hear you, because all they care about is them and what they're getting out of it, and that you're meeting their needs. So if you're trying to be like, well, how do I make this work? As long as you're willing to be a punching bag, and as long as you're willing to be a slave to them and do everything they want to do and be their sex slave and take care of the house, take care of the kids, and cook and clean and provide and do everything else, then you can probably make the relationship work at your own sacrifice. So if you're willing to sacrifice your soul and your heart and yourself, that just doesn't, you can do it, but then again, you're going to be loving somebody else more than you love yourself. Forgiveness is a good way to get through it. I had to do a lot of forgiving. I had to forgive myself most of all, but I did, have to sit there and stop asking God to kill him. There was a point that I was definitely just full of anger and full of rage and full of bitterness. And, I had to check my heart, and you can't just walk around and not be at peace. You've got to have peace, and your heart's got to be whole. And, that's just the best way. I know how to get through that, is just being, finding the strength within yourself and learning to be happy with you. And I know everybody says that, and everybody's going, oh, well, how do I be happy with myself? Well, if you've been in these toxic relationships over and over and over again, you're going to have to start asking yourself, what makes you happy? And, who you were before you met this person. Because I know as a codependent, we change our personalities and we change who we are and recreate ourselves. And that's the other thing. I didn't like who I became when I was with this person. The person that I became was not who I was. The original time that we were together and lived together, that's who I was. I was, you know, just focused on kids and me and doing the home life, and that's who I am. But when we broke up and he kept coming back and I was starting to feel crazy, I became this party girl, and that is just so not who I am. That's not who I even like to be. And it's so funny because he used that against me later, being like, "Oh, I want to be in a good relationship with a a good woman and this and that, and I want to live a good life." And I was like, you had that, and you didn't want that either. So I thought, well, I'll go to the extreme, and now we'll do this crazy party drinking life. One, it didn't glorify God. Again, it's putting a man before God and what God says to do in your life and how to, I'm guilty of it. I'll admit it. It just is what it is. I have to say that I'm extremely thankful now that we're on lockdown that I'm not with this person. I think we all have a lot of time to think right now, and with the coronavirus going on, and I hope everybody's staying in and being safe. But I thank God every day right now that I'm not with this person. I think of how miserable I would be trying to make this person happy while they were on lockdown with me. I would probably be having to cook 3 meals a day. I would have to be catering to him and cleaning garages out that I don't want to clean out and doing all these things that I don't want to do just to please him. Or, it would have been so much work on me. Like I think of how peaceful and how just nice my life is now. And, and I know that a lot of you are suffering, and I know you're in pain, and I know that you love these people. But man, once you get to the other side of this, it is so much nicer and it gets so much easier. For the first time in my life, I get to live my life on my terms. And with that being said, it's about, I get to do me. I get to do, how do I explain this? If I'm successful, that's on me. If I'm a failure, that's on me, but it's my own now. I don't have somebody else telling me, "Oh, you should have done this," or "You should have done it this way," or I'm responsible for me now. And that is so just liberating. This is probably the first time in I want to say 30 years that I've been able to do that and just be like, this is my own. I can own it. If I choose to write a book, which I'm starting to write a book right now, which is the first book that I've ever tried to write. Doing things in my business are different. I'm able to put money into my business and do the things that I think I need to do to build it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, that's on me. I don't have anybody complaining to me anymore. And as I said, you don't understand how uplifting this is until you're out of these toxic, horrible relationships with these narcissistic people, because they control everything. If I want to go buy my daughter a dress right now, I could go buy my daughter a dress. If I want to go buy her a toy, I can go buy her a toy. And I don't have to worry about what they're going to think. And that's where you all need to get to that point of freedom in this and learn to live for you. And, at the end of the day, you have to live with you. You have to be okay with your choices. And I'm to a point that I don't need a man to make me feel whole. Like I know that we're all geared that, oh, you're nothing if you don't have a significant other. I don't feel that way anymore. I'm actually to a point where I would rather sit here and be single for the rest of my life than ever go through this stuff again. And I'm going to wait. And if God brings me the right person in my life, great. But if he doesn't, I'm okay with that too. And right now I'm not dating. I don't want to date. I mean, I have friends that, are kind of gentleman friends that I do go and have drinks with here and there, but they're close friends of mine. And, but I don't really want to, am I seeing them romantically? One in particular I am. But again, it's on my terms. It's very much on my terms. It's when I don't have something to do or my kids aren't disrupted, because that's the other thing that we do as women is we just go all out and just start neglecting our kids and putting them on the back burner. I refuse to do that again. So right now I do have people that when she doesn't have dance or she doesn't have something going on with gymnastics or band or school or any to that extent, yeah, I'll go out and have a drink and I'll have some companionship. But that's all I want right now. And that's just where I'm at. I don't, until God brings me that right man that's going to honor me and love me the way that I want to be loved, I am not walking in any of these relationships. And I hope this helped some of you ladies out and get some perspective on some things. And we'll talk next time.